I'd like to call the meeting for the Hayden City Council to order. It is Tuesday, December 14th. It is 5 o'clock, and we are located in the Hayden City Hall Council chambers. Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
And Councilmember Roeder is absent. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Fonda Jakovic will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Jovic.
Jovic.
You were close.
B instead of B?
Jovic.
B. Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Fonda. Due to my error, I had discussions with Harbs, with Ken, and with Council President Satterfield. I failed to add something to the consent calendar, and we will need a motion to amend the agenda appropriately. And with respect to consent item G, 1G, the delivery fee was $75, and that was not included. F, thank you. Authorization to enter into an equipment agreement rental with Pape Machinery. That will be increased by $75. So do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Yes, you do.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Thank you. Consent calendar 1A, approval of August 24th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. 1B, approval of September 16th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. 1C, approval of November 9, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. 1D, approval of Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board wastewater treatment plant facility upgrades payment request. 1E, approval of 2021 annual road and street report. 1F, authorization to enter into an equipment rental agreement with Pape Machinery. G, approval of Gales Glen final plat. 1H, approval of PZE-21-0203 Quails Nest Comprehensive Plan, future land use map and zone amendment written decision. I, approval of PZE-21-0197 Doris zone map amendment written decision. 1J, approval of first addendum to the professional services agreement with FCS Group, impact fee update. K, approval of year-end reappointments of Hayden Commission members. L, approval of appointments to the Arts Commission. M, approval to appoint Keith Gibson to the Planning and Zoning Commission. 1N, approval of addendum to Bernardo Will's professional services agreement for Lancaster Water Storage Tank and City Park design. O, approval of agreement with Access Unlimited and Security, Inc. for City Hall security system. P, approval of phased master site plan agreement with Bryce Chapin. Q, approval of school resource officer agreement with Coeur d'Alene School District. R, authorization to bid for the 4th Street and Honeysuckle Avenue roundabout project. S, approval of William and Benita Crane right-of-way contract and stipulation agreement for 4th Street and Honeysuckle Avenue roundabout project. T, ratification of November payroll. U, ratification of bills for payment from 11/29/21. V, ratification of bills for payment from 12/3/21. W, bills for payment. X, approval of Roger Satterfield appointment to the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board as the voting member effective January 11th, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Do we have anyone for visitor public comment on non-agenda items? Have we received anything?
I have not received any
Okay.
visitor public comment.
Number 3, and Gary is here. He snuck in. I'm going to come down. What we'd like to do is, first of all, receive a commission report from the Veterans Commission. And then following that, we will take care of other business with you, young man. So are you doing the report?
So as far as the Veterans Committee, the only thing we really got to report is the things that we've done. The main thing we've done so far for last year and with COVID and everything, we've done the Hayden Days parades. We also did the Veterans Day ceremony, which we had great turnout and the weather was good also. And I appreciate the city and everybody that participated with it. We also did the truck or treat. We did approve a donation for the Idaho Veterans Assistant League of North Idaho of $500 donation to them. So that just got approved last meeting we had. And then the last thing we did was the Hayden Lights Parade. That was just the other day. So appreciate everybody turning out and the cars that we got donated and everything. So it was great success on that. So any questions?
Comment not to be pejorative for or for Rathdrum or Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls, but they are envious of our Veterans Commission in Hayden and the work that's done. So my thanks to you and your group for a fabulous job.
You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate
Other
that.
comments
Any other?
to General Louis?
All right. All right, you guys.
You can't leave?
Oh, I can't leave yet?
No.
Okay.
We have here, we have a certificate of appreciation to Gary Louie with deep appreciation from the city of Hayden for his hours of volunteer service on the Veterans Commission from August 2017 to December 2021. Your time, commitment, and contribution to our community is appreciated. Thank you for volunteering and serving and setting such a great example for other communities.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, you're good.
Somebody
Appreciate it.
do anything for a picture, you know?
Yeah, I might break it though.
Gary, you do not have to wait around till the end of the meeting. You're dismissed, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, you guys take care. That's good timing.
We now have a applicant initiated public hearing. I'd like to read, and we're going to make some changes. Fonda's going to help in terms of, in fact, before we do, Caitlin Kling has served amazingly well as our legal representative, and she is going to go to work in the private sector. Can we say which company? Is that legal?
Yeah, no.
For a dubious man, Mike Kennedy. I hope that's on the record. Yes, I've known Mike for many years, and we're grateful very much for Caitlin. She came at a great time and has provided professional and correct direction for the city of Hayden. The young lady sitting next to her, who led us in the Pledge of Allegiance, is one of the partners in Caitlin's firm. I understood that it was Caitlin's firm and that all these other individuals worked for her.
I mean, they're working on a name change
No.
to Caitlin's firm.
I trained her
City.
well.
So our agreement
Right, yeah.
is with Lake City, and it will continue as such. And Brett and I have had the opportunity to meet with, talk to, and listen to the direction and focus with respect to our legal team, and we're grateful and confident that this will be a seamless transition. And Caitlin, you're going to be with us for one more meeting, is that true?
Right,
Correct?
yep.
Okay.
So January 11th will be my last meeting.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm with the firm through the 21st. So,
Okay.
yep, we're working really hard to make sure it's a seamless transition, and I certainly think it can be. So,
there was nothing conditional about what I expected your comments to be. It will be, and we are excited.
We're working really hard to make it.
Fonda, would you
She's
like
here
to,
tonight.
would
I
you like
mean,
to provide
all part of
some
that.
level of clarification
part
to
of
what
that.
Caitlin said?
No, Lake City Law is committed to continuing to provide you with the level of legal service that you have been provided over the last several years. And as you all know, Caitlin has worked for the city of Hayden for a long time. She transitioned to Lake City Law from another law firm in town, and under her tutelage and direction, I know that it was a seamless transition when you moved from one firm to another, and we are committed to making sure that you have a seamless transition from one attorney to another. Lake City Law brings a municipal team. Caitlin hasn't needed a team because she's extremely self-sufficient, but we do provide 4 attorneys that are well qualified. However, we will have 1.5 probably committed to Hayden, so that you're not surprised. You'll see the same face at every city council meeting. You don't know this yet, but it looks like it will be me, so that's why I'm here tonight. And then you will see a different face half of the time at planning and zoning. But that's just because we have a team approach within our firm. We represent a number of governmental entities, and we want to make sure that you continue to get the same level of service that you've received previously.
Thank you. Brett, any comments?
I feel very confident. Andy was the other person that we met the other night, and I feel very confident that this will just continue on seamlessly. So appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you.
I appreciate Caitlin and Brett's work in making sure that I understood next steps and how we wanted to proceed. And council and members of the city, I feel confident that you are protected by a great group of people who have your best interests at heart. So we're grateful and excited for the opportunity. Somewhat saddened, but that sadness has been tempered. I'm past it.
Great.
We look sad,
I
Caitlin.
know, the clouds have parted. Yeah, the clouds have parted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's
Much
been
appreciated.
super. And yes, I did send a text to Mr. Kennedy at 10 o'clock at night and at 5:30 in the morning. But this is a great thing, so we're grateful.
We are sad to see her go also, and you will be glad to know that if she doesn't like her new job, the door is open at Lake City Law and she can come right back where she left off.
Hear that, Mike? Thank you. We will now proceed to agenda item 4, public hearing. And Fonda and team will make sure that the verbiage changes. Historically, the only way that we would be able to make comments is to have ex parte communications. I'm concerned from a legal standpoint for the citizens of Hayden that it's getting to the point prior to any public hearings that people are making comments online. People are possibly putting themselves in a position where they will not be able to vote. And my hope is that we will all do what we need to do, both this council as well as the following council, to ensure that we are represented appropriately and per the Constitution and direction that is given to elected leaders in a municipality. So with that, I will ask each council member if they have had any ex parte communication with the applicant or the general public regarding the subject case. And that ex parte communication could have also included any online communication that you might have had.
No.
No. Okay, thank you very much. And moving forward, we have some things in line so that we can make sure that we are trained appropriately and directed appropriately. Hearing that there have not been any ex parte communications with the applicant or the general public regarding the subject case, we will now open the public hearing. The applicant will present. The council will ask the applicant questions. Staff will then present, and a summary of the staff report for the proposed subject case is included. The public will have the opportunity to comment, and those comments will be directed to the council. Commenters must complete the public hearing comment form on the back table. Any written testimony not received by the Community and Economic Development Department by the date specified in the hearing notice must be read into the record by the person commenting. Commenters will be called upon in the order of those: A, in support, B, uncommitted, and C, those opposed to the subject case. Commenters must testify at the podium, so remarks can be picked up on the recorder. The applicant will then have the opportunity to provide rebuttal, and the public hearing will then be closed. So we will turn the time over now to the applicant for presentation. I know that you're staff, but
Yeah. So I'm
We'll
just
follow
going to
direction.
give kind of a short background and then recap in kind of a general location, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant. So tonight we're looking at the Mabry annexation request, PZE 21-0165. So just as a matter of background, in February of 2020, a request to annex this property was brought before the City Council. The City Council approved that request contingent upon correspondence from the airport and will serve letters being provided from the water and sewer providers. In September of 2020, a complete application was received. And in November 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission and subsequently the City Council denied the request to annex the property. Annexation processes do not have an appeal under Idaho state statutes or Hayden City Code. So then the Imagine Hayden plan and all of the supporting documents were approved kind of in order. So in November, the 2040 comprehensive plan was approved. In January of 2021, the Parks Master Plan was approved, and the Transportation Strategic Plan and associated policies and guidelines were approved. And then in February, the Sewer Master Plan and associated policies were approved. In June of 2021, City Council approved the request to begin the process for annexation again. So the property is 5 acres, and the request is for single-family residential R1. The existing conditions are a single-family residence. And in August of 2021, Planning and Zoning heard the request and recommended a zone of single-family residential should the City Council decide to annex the property. So just as a matter of where are we talking about, the area in pink is the area inside the city limits. This is a graphic from the Kootenai County web map. And the area in yellow is the city of Coeur d'Alene. And as you can see, this area is within the infill of surrounding cities of the city of Hayden and the city of Coeur d'Alene. So the development team, the owner is Jackie's Family Trust. And the last annexation request was under that name, but when we notice them, we give them names of various properties. And so because it's the Jackie Mayberry trustee, we use the Mayberry for this one just to distinguish the two requests. The owner's representative is Connie Kruger. She's here in the audience to present. With that, I'll turn it over to her.
Hello, my name is Connie Kruger, for the record, and happy to be here tonight, Christmas holidays. As we've mentioned, we have Jackie's Family Trust is the owner and Jacqueline Mabry is the trustee. And I'm not sure what happened there. So our proposal tonight is to annex the property into the city of Hayden, and our request is for an R1 zone district. Here's a little bit of information about the property. The primary item to focus on is that it is 4.74 acres in
just 1
size.
minute. How can we technologically get her to share that with the go-to meeting?
It is, I shared the screen.
It is?
Usually it has that little thing.
I don't know.
We just want to make sure.
Sure.
Thanks, Connie. It doesn't, there's no time limit, so that's okay. And then Connie, when you start again, would you give us your address, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Well, I was shared. I don't know why it's not sharing. There you go.
Thanks, Abby.
Good call.
So how did you know?
There you go.
That's amazing. Thank you.
We'll start again. So my name is Connie Creer and my address is 1859 North Lakewood Drive, Suite 102, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, 83814.
Thank you.
And we'll just jump into a little bit of property information. The property is 4.74 acres in size. And this shows you a regional view of the property so we can, kind of see some of the subdivisions that we'll talk about tonight. We have Balzer Estates, Giovanni Estates, Strawberry Fields, different development that is occurring in the area. So it just kind of shows you where that is within the greater area. There were some city council requirements that Donna has hit on for us to proceed with this annexation. And the first was the correspondence from the Coeur d'Alene Airport. And with that, we worked through the proposed zone designation and possible future development of the property, so they were very aware of that. And basically requested an navigation easement. We were also required to provide will serve letters for water and sewer from the applicable purveyors. So one of those is the city of Hayden, and we have a will serve letter from them. And then also from our water district, we have also received a will serve letter. We were also required to do a trip generation letter and a possible transportation analysis with mitigation requirements as necessary. And so we did produce that trip generation letter, and basically it fit within the planned levels of traffic that were within the city's transportation plan. And so the city did not require any additional mitigation related to that. Just to touch bases on, real quick, on Idaho code requirements related to annexation. Idaho code has language related to basically the legislative intent behind the act of annexing. And basically the legislator declares and determines that it is their policy that cities should be able to annex lands which are reasonably necessary to assure the orderly development of Idaho cities. And this is to allow for efficient and economically viable provision of tax-supported and fee-supported municipal services, to enable orderly development of private lands which benefit from the cost-effective availability of municipal services in urbanizing areas, and to equitably allocate the cost of public services in the management of development on the urban fringe. So a real strong statement within state law related to the intent of providing the tool of annexation. And as you see within this, a lot of this is about efficient and economically viable growth for the cities. So kind of saying, hey, annex, infill, go out on your edges, ensure that when you're using this tool that you're, looking at economic impacts as part of that. This is a regional view of the areas of city impact for Kootenai County, and each of the cities has its own color code. And you can see here is the city of Hayden's area of city impact. And these areas that are red are areas that are already in city limits, and the areas that are kind of this lighter salmon color are areas that were not yet annexed, but were considered within the area of city impacts. And so in this case, there was an agreement that was crafted between the city of Hayden and Kootenai County related to development in this area. And basically the county said, yes, we understand that you plan to develop in this area. When you do, we think that you'll annex, we think that you'll provide utilities, and they set the stage for what would happen during that process, as well as a consultation process for development that wasn't annexing. And those area of city impact agreements have been in place for quite a while. So we see here, just kind of within the context of our area of city impact here in Hayden, where this property lies. It is important to note the other areas that are within the areas of city impact that are not yet annexed.
Just for the public, because it's done, the street just south of the star is a north-south street. I just didn't want people to think that it was east-west, either here or those online.
Yeah.
So it's, if we rotate it, that's probably a better picture of the property itself. go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
No,
just.
that's okay. So the property actually abuts Atlas, and it does not abut the Bean Cranston through this area, and it's just to the north of Prairie Avenue, if that helps a little bit with that. As we look within these areas that remain non-annexed, basically, in the unincorporated county, we'll take a look at the land use plans for those areas, but we'll see that most of them are, for kind of a future different land use than for residential. So as we look at these areas, we're left with just a couple of, little pocket areas where residential infill development was anticipated to occur. There is ACI legislative intent also in Idaho codes, so in establishing an area of city impact, the legislature also basically put together 3 factors that would be considered when that mapping was created. And the first was trade area, the second was geographic factors, and the third was areas that can reasonably be expected to be annexed to the city in the future. So this is the guidance that came down that formed those areas of city impact agreements and the related maps related to that. So again, the idea behind areas of city impact was to create areas for annexation to occur. The county comprehensive plan also reflects the concept of area of city impact. And there is a border designation that you see again, this is the Kootenai County map. And you see the cities that are in black, and then in this kind of gray area, you see the border designation. So largely, the border designations within the county comprehensive plan also reflect on area city impact boundaries. So they correspond back to that prior map that I showed you. And in this case, the statement from the county's comprehensive plan says that prior to annexation, these areas are generally suitable for agricultural pursuits and/or single-family development. Until annexation has occurred and city service can be provided, they're not expected to be intensely developed or further subdivided. But it goes further to say once annexed, that areas with this designation are expected to be served by urban services. And so we'll talk a little bit about what urban services are available in the area. It's also important to know that this property is currently zoned agricultural, and the agricultural zoning does not allow for any subdivisions. So a property that has that zoning on it cannot subdivide. So often we hear people comment about properties that are out in the county and they say, well, they can subdivide down to 1 acre, or they can go to, 2 acres or whatever, whatever it may be. In this case with the ag zoning, the minimum lot size is 10 acres. And even if you had 20 acres, you can't go through the act of subdividing. So basically the property is held within that pattern until it's annexed into the cities, or if it's rezoned to something like, commercial or something along those lines in the county. This is the city's prior comprehensive plan. I retain this image in this presentation because this is actually the comprehensive plan that we were under when we made our application. And so you see here that we have the yellow designation, also with a great big star where it's hard to see what the roads are within the area. But the yellow at the time indicated basically the equivalent of the R1 zoning, which is the zoning that we are asking for. This is the city's current comprehensive plan, and so with this you can also see that the city basically retained the same concept, retained this concept that there would be a single-family residential zone district in this area in the future. Going back to that prior map that we were looking at earlier of the area of city impact, I mentioned these areas that are in light pink here, kind of up to the north of the city around the airport. And we have our area here, a little bit around Hayden Lake. So as we move forward and we look at the city's new comprehensive plan, what we see in these areas to the north of the city, or we see plans for future agricultural lands, or some residential areas that would be around the possible future Hutter bypass location. We see a little bit of residential out here in these infill areas here, and then in this area and around the airport we see industrial. So the reason that I bring that up is to really draw attention to the fact that this ACI map can look quite extensive, But when we match this up to the city's future land use plans, the areas that are to the north of the city are really planned for different types of uses. And so the primary infill development for residential would be in this area between Hutter and Atlas, and then probably right around the lake, and in a couple of other limited pockets. So there's not a lot of land where the traditional single-family residential is planned for in the city's long-term plans. The city's R1 zoning designation, the purpose is to protect stable neighborhoods of single-family dwellings on smaller lots. And so here we see the surrounding land use pattern and the development that has occurred in the past. This is a map showing annexations that have been done probably over the last 10 years, maybe 10 to 12 years, that are surrounding the area that we're talking about tonight. And so we have the Grossglasser annexation, Giovanni, Carrington, and then the Jaco and the Bluegrass. And the Jaco and the Bluegrass annexations were really large annexations. So that's why you don't see a ton of labels out in that area, because they involve several landowners, but were for very large areas that were done all at the same time. Similar subdivisions that are in the area, as we look to the east side of Atlas, we have Balzer Estates, New Dreams, Broadmoor, and Strawberry Fields. And Strawberry Fields continues down to Prairie Avenue. And then some of them that are on the west side are Gianna Estates South, and Giovanni, which my label is gone there. And then we're looking now at Jackie's Family. This is also an area that has public and commercial development, and this map actually shows you just some, again, kind of large labels, but showing you properties that are in the area. So this is the Atlas Elementary School. We have the Panhandle Health District, and then there's quite a number of different projects that are down here along Prairie Avenue. Prairie Avenue Community Church and School. We have some storage, Cornerstone Church, and then the new BMC building materials. And there may be even more than that, but those are just some that I pulled to, kind of highlight that. So going back to that ACI map and looking at this in relation to the future land use map, this really raises the question of where does the future single-family residential development go within the city? The city's comprehensive plan has a plan for 19,152 individuals and over 6,000 homes that would be planned to accommodate those over a 20-year planning period. And so if you take a look at these graphics, I have the ACI map up here in the upper left-hand corner. But as we look out here, I actually provide these maps, and these are actually, I probably need to update these, but I think they're largely similar to the current sewer and transportation plans. But if you look into these areas out here and north of the city, they're basically undeveloped sewer basins. And so our property is right here on the verge of an already developed sewer basin. And we'll talk a little bit about the capacity that's in that sewer basin later on. This is the transportation, again, not the most current one, but I think it reflects current circumstances, because everywhere that you see a little dotted line, those are areas where the city had planned to provide for roads, but they're not yet constructed. So again, as we look to the north and as we look out to the west, we see, some unconstructed infrastructure. So again, looking at our property borders right on Atlas, and we'll talk a little bit more about Atlas. But again, looking, just a couple little pockets are out there where you have full services. And then as you look at these other residential expansion areas, there are areas where you need to provide additional infrastructure. So going back to the legislative intent of annexation, it is there to provide for economical, basically expansion of a city. And generally that happens in areas where you have utilities and transportation infrastructure. So as to infrastructure that is present, we have a 10-inch sewer line, which is present in Atlas Road. The H5 basin has capacity, and this is a basin map, and so this shows you the sewer shed. And there's actually capacity in the lift station over here in Strawberry Fields. And we have a will serve letter from the city reflecting that the capacity is there. Stormwater, there are no formal stormwater systems within the city, so stormwater will be provided in roadside systems, the existing system on Atlas and on site. Potable water and fire flow, we have a will serve from Hayden Lake Irrigation District. And streets, pedestrian paths, and related utilities. Basically, North Atlas is a minor arterial. So we've heard some comments on traffic, but this is a road that is designed to accommodate that. And we have provided a trip generation letter that the city has matched up with that and has indicated that yes, the capacity is there and no additional improvements will be needed. The property is generally flat. There are no wetlands or water bodies that are on site, and there's no floodplain on the property. So again, not something that you commonly think of in Hayden, but when you go out into the surrounding communities and in the surrounding county, these are conditions that you can encounter. And so it's always just good to know that we're looking at that and that this is a good area for development to occur. As to agency comments, that's supposed to say no comments or concerns, but the school district was not concerned, Kootenai County Community Development was not, and then as we mentioned earlier, the airport has requested a navigation easement. These are the standards that are applicable for annexation, and I know that the staff has worked through those in their staff report. So just to kind of pull this together, these are the considerations that we would like you to think about. We do have the border designation within the county comprehensive plan, which really is encouraging development within these areas, and that it should be consistent with the city's long-range plan. The city's comprehensive plans, both past and present, are for single-family residential within this area. We have a pattern of R1 zoning in the area, so we're not going out and asking for multifamily, we're not asking for anything unusual, we're asking for something that is part of the development pattern of the area. We know that the county's agricultural zoning does not allow for any development of the property unless it is in an agricultural use and until it's annexed. And so that's just something to be aware of. Sometimes there's a little bit of an argument out there that if you continue to promote an agricultural use, you'll have more incompatibilities over time. So when the city is really looking at annexing an area and feels like it really needs to, there may be more incompatible uses that you're working with in that case. We have the legislative intent related to establishing that ACI, and that an ACI is in an area where you should have services, which we do. And also, as we've hit on, the legislative intent of Idaho annexation statutes. We have that minor arterial street that has capacity. We have access to the airport. We have access to Prairie Avenue. We have access to arterial street systems, which allow for free movement of traffic to and from the property. We have water, sewer, stormwater, and transportation infrastructure all there, and we have will-serve letters reflecting that. There are no environmental conditions of concern. As we've talked about, it's an urbanizing area with some of the residential development that you've seen, but also with some of the public agency development, some of the commercial development that's happening in the area. And we really are surrounded by a city. We may not have it touching on all sides, which is why we're here for an annexation, but we have, kind of a surrounding pattern, including the city of Coeur d'Alene bumping up against Prairie Avenue. This property has been within the ACI since the time that the ACI agreements have been created, so this isn't something that we're asking to have put into that agreement. And then we have looked at the area and we have not seen any commercial, agricultural, or ranching activities. There are comments related to, some level of activity that's occurring, but just a general overview of that, we're not seeing it. There could be something that's smaller scale that we're not aware of. And we really think that this is an excellent area for annexation when we look at some of the other areas for this from the city's ACI. One of the public comments that we've received is related to easements that are on the property. This is a title excerpt, and this actually shows you, this is actually a very unusual property in relation to many of the properties that I've seen, that it doesn't have a lot of what we call exceptions. And those are easements, deed restrictions, things like that. And so we have reviewed the title report and we haven't found any easements on the property, though there are some comment letters that are referring to those. And so if there are easements, the owner is not aware of them and the title company is not aware of them. It doesn't mean that there can't be surrounding easements on other people's property, but we're not aware of any on this property. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for the applicant?
No, I think you covered it pretty well for me.
Hearing none then, Donna? Also, Donna, I received comments that some of the public thinks that this is simply, I'll use their term, not ours, rubber stamp, that applicants just come in and many times get approval. Would you share the number of meetings, discussions, direction that comes before anything comes to council? And then in this case as well, whatever your recommendation is and why your recommendation is what it is? Because you're much harder to go through, so. If that's okay, I just want to make sure that the public, those that are here and those that are online, have the opportunity to understand that there is a tremendous amount of work that goes in prior to any recommendation before P and Z, let alone the council.
Right, so with an annexation request, before any kind of a land use request, we ask the applicant to come forward, come to staff, and have what we call a pre-development meeting. That pre-development meeting has our engineer, city engineer there, our community development director, a planner, sometimes a building person if we're honing in on a building, not on this one because it's an annexation. So we have various people from various entities there. Sometimes the fire department comes as well. And we work through all of the requirements that would be required as part of whatever this project is. So in this case, when you're looking at an annexation, you're looking for, have you met the standards in the various long-term planning documents of the city? So when we brought it forward to City Council for request to annex, the staff put together a memo and identified that, and you'll see later in my presentation, and you saw a little bit in Connie's, that we identified that it's in the one of the airport zones, one of the restrictive zones of the Coeur d'Alene Airport. We sent them to the airport and said you needed to do some additional footwork to see how that would be impacted. We required them to, or we requested in our conditions to provide will serve letters to verify that they could get water or they could get sewer to the site. We identified what kind of requirements are required by the transportation strategic plan based on the typical section that's approved. They have to dedicate that right of way at the time, should the annexation be approved, they have to dedicate the right of way as part of the annexation, but the agreement that they signed says that if the typical section changes between the time it's annexed and the time that it actually develops, then they have to potentially dedicate some more to meet the new typical section. We talk about parks plans and multimodal non-motorized pathways. Again, remember this is across the street from a school. We want to make sure that any of the students that would be living in this can get to the school safely and work on getting those pathways in there and in place. So we talked about all of that at the beginning. Then they have to actually request the council to entertain the idea of an annexation if you think that it's a good idea for them to work through that process and go do that footwork and what have you. Council heard that and thought that it met, kind of that direction, and they worked through that process kind of right in the beginning or the middle of the updates to all of the plans. And as a result of that, they worked through a public hearing process, public notices, notice boards. Staff got to field all of those people that were around them with those notices that went out and address those questions and concerns. good concerns. They went to a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the folks had the opportunity to testify in person. So I sat at those meetings, and then that recommendation of denial of that one was brought forward to City Council. City Council was again a public hearing, because with annexation, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommendation body for the zone should the City Council choose to annex. And then the public hearing before City Council is the annexation question. Does it make sense for the city to annex the property into the city? At that point in time, that was denied, and there isn't an appeal process, but they waited for the plans to be completed, did the request again before City Council, and got the direction that you would review it based on the new plans that have been adopted and what have you. Planning and Zoning Commission worked through all that public notice process and updated staff reviews and what have you. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission heard that. There's in the minutes that's in your staff reviews, staff memos that you guys have as a complete portion of the record. There's a really good, the Planning and Zoning Commission did a really good kind of back and forth analysis of how they got to their recommendation. And now we're here tonight through the public hearing process again. So lots of work.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to bore you with a whole another PowerPoint, but I did want to touch on some highlights. Hayden City Code and Idaho statute do require 4 kinds of things to look at. You want to consider the existing zone district or regulations and require any additional studies if necessary. The Planning and Zoning Commission did not require any additional studies. The City Council may impose conditions. The Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation approval that is in their written decision recommended approval with staff recommended conditions of approval. Amendments to the zone map must be in accordance with the future land use map, goals, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And amendments to the zone map must be in accordance with the zone district's purpose and intent. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended single-family residential R1 should, again, the City Council approve the annexation. So you've looked at all of these maps kind of as bits and pieces. So again, this is out of the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan. The dark black is the kind of the city limits at the time that their comprehensive plan was adopted. And as again, you can see the area that we're looking at is this area that's kind of in the middle of 3 sides by Hayden City and the south side by the city of Coeur d'Alene. So if you look at the 2040 comprehensive plan, they're showing it as being, or we're showing it as being single family residential. Pretty much right in a sea of single family residential. And then the existing zone map, again, our blue is the city limits of the city of Hayden, 3 sides to that kind of overall area. And the city of Coeur d'Alene is on the south of Prairie Avenue. So just a little bit about that non-motorized multimodal. There's no park dedication required for this piece of property. They are required based on the parks and the transportation master plans to put a 10-foot wide multimodal path in the front along their frontage of Atlas Road. And any development that occurs on this property will pay park impact fees as part of their building permit development fees. Streets, pedestrian paths, and utilities. This is the updated 2040 transportation, I can spit that word out, transportation strategic plan. It shows this area as being a 3-lane commercial or light industrial collector roadway. And their project would have to extend that frontage requirement at the time of development. They'd have to build the half width, but at the time of annexation, they'd have to dedicate the required right-of-way for that half width typical. When Ms. Kruger was talking about their trip generation letter that was required to be part of their application materials, and whether or not it would trip a transportation impact analysis with part of the policies that were adopted as part of the transportation strategic plan. We identified certain trigger points that would trigger that analysis. And the trip generation letter provided does not trip any of the requirement for a traffic analysis, because again, they're requesting single-family residential. The comprehensive plan shows it as single-family residential, and that was what was modeled as part of the updates. So will serve letters have been received from both the water purveyor and the sewer purveyor, and at the time of any future development, those will need to be updated. Utilities shall be built according to state and local codes, standards, policies, and master plans. Any plans for future development will be reviewed at the time of future development. And Northern Lakes Fire Protection District reviews construction plans to make sure that fire flow and circulation meet their requirements as well. The project site is in the Coeur d'Alene School District, and it is across the street from Atlas Elementary School, and it is east of a future site of the school district to the west. This was the intercritical zone that I alluded to, kind of talking before the rest of this presentation. And the airport did provide an email in July that said that they didn't have any additional comments, but they did request a navigation easement over the entire parcel. In your staff review, in the analysis, you have a table that kind of identifies the goals and policies in the future land use in the comprehensive plan, which may address an annexation. They're found on pages 8 and 9 of the comprehensive plan itself, and they're in your appendix of your staff review as well, which starts kind of, I think the staff review starts on like page 41 of that memo, so it's toward the end of that. But ultimately, the gist is that you're maintaining an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities, and housing types. Promoting greater choices and opportunities. You're encouraging the development within the corporate limits prior to the annexation of adjacent areas. But again, this is infill and it's surrounded on 3 sides by city. You're ensuring that all development can be serviced by existing public facilities. You're adequately citing essential public facilities and utilities without compromising surrounding neighborhood integrity. Again, you're establishing a balance between jobs and housing to attract new employment and living opportunities. Bicycle and pedestrian connectivity is important. You're coordinating the timely development of efficient and effective and environmentally sound sewer and water and other utility infrastructure. You're ensuring that you're not violating private property rights, and you're enhancing non-motorized connectivity. Those are kind of the big goals. We include all of the goals and policies in your staff review because the staff kind of works through and picks the ones that they think most are appropriate to the particular request, but we're not flawless. So they're there for your review as well. And then policies that are also in that appendix is that the city should judiciously evaluate the opportunity to provide sewer and water and other services. Development should be incompatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan and fiscally responsible. The city should evaluate community-wide impacts of any development. Areas proposed for annexation are to be considered only if they are contiguous to the city limits. City infrastructure improvements projects should aim to improve all above and below ground facilities, and so any new development would be required to have the infrastructure provided underground. Ensure that the levels of public service facilities and utilities are adequate to satisfy. Ensure multimodal transportation compatibility and connectivity, and ensure that the land use and zoning compatible related to the development, density, and type occurring in close proximity to the Coeur d'Alene Airport. So the notices and comments as it relates to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we heard back from Hayden Lake Irrigation District, Kootenai County Community Development, and Coeur d'Alene Airport. It's important to note that we noticed all public services and all public districts that are zoning districts or various public districts. This Coeur d'Alene School District, Lakeland School District, Kootenai County Sheriff's Department, Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. There's like 22 of them that we noticed. So we heard back from 3. No
So
concerns.
the school district did not respond?
No, we sent it to 3 different individuals at the Coeur d'Alene School.
That's what okay. Thank you for that clarification for the public record, because we've had numerous discussions with the school district, and so we received nothing back for the record from any of the 3 individuals with whom we communicated.
Not for
Thank
this
you.
request, that's correct. Hayden Lake Irrigation District responded with no concerns, but they provided the will serve. Kootenai County Community Development responded with no concerns, and the Coeur d'Alene Airport, again, no comments, but requested an navigation easement. Public comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which were part of a memo to the commission and part of the record that you have before you. Mr. Rohrbach was opposed. Holzman was opposed. He noted subdivisions in the prairie and traffic to school. Mr. Bouchane was opposed. He addressed traffic concerns, crime and trespassers, water easements, and mains. There is a comment in the minutes on pages 5 and 6 of 13 that identified that staff did reach out to Hayden Lake Irrigation District to try to understand the water main question, and Hayden Lake Irrigation District didn't share any concerns, said that would be addressed at the time of development. So then notice and comments to the for the City Council public hearing tonight. Again, I said we had to notice twice, and you received both a memo with the staff review and then a follow-up memo with additional comments that were received by the date in the notice. So in the November memo to council, you heard from, you read comments that came in from Linnell and Scott Delbaum, who are both opposed, and from Sandra White, who was opposed. And then in the December 2021 supplemental memo to council, those comments came in from Mr. Bouchane, Linnell and Scott Delbaum, Mr. Rex, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Rohrbach, and Mr. Tolzman. And then there are 5 staff recommended conditions of approval should the City Council choose to annex. The applicant shall enter into an annexation agreement that'll lay out their requirements at the time of development and at the time of annexation. Site and/or subdivision development, the applicant shall comply with the requirements from Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. The granting of the roadway drainage, utility and snow storage easement, the dedication of the right-of-way on Atlas Road, again, shall happen according to the typical section that is approved today. And if it changes in the future, according to the agreement, they'll have to address potentially additional right-of-way dedications. Developer shall use City of Hayden sewer and shall extend sewer to the boundaries of the future development in accordance with our plans. And that an navigation easement shall be recorded as a condition of the annexation agreement. These are in summary. The actual verbiage is in the staff review in its entirety. So the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation was that upon completion of deliberations, they voted to recommend approval with staff recommended conditions with a zone designation of single-family residential R1 should the City Council approve the annexation request. The motion passed with 4 in favor, 2 were opposed, and 1 was absent. So the City Council decision, the City Council may approve. You may approve with conditions. You may modify or amend or change the conditions that the staff has recommended and the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended. Or you may deny the request to be annexed with a zone designation of single-family residential. Do you have questions for me?
Any questions for Donna?
One. Donna, City Coeur d'Alene, their boundaries are south. There's no way they can annex this parcel, is there? I mean, because doesn't it have to be contiguous?
It is contiguous, but it's in our area of city impact, so we would have to de-annex them from our area of city impacts
Okay,
before they could annex north of Prairie Avenue. And this is a ways north of Prairie Avenue. It's not contiguous to them on the south.
okay, thank you.
Questions, additional questions? Donna, just to comment, do you have a question, Jerry?
Donna? The, single family R1, is that 4 units per acre?
It's a minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet, and it averages 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre, depending on,
3 to 4?
generally speaking, because you have to put roadways in, and it's what it usually averages out to.
Okay, and one of our choices, we could approve with a limit on what kind of density we'd like to see there?
Not
The zone-
yet.
Right, so the request to annex is,
That's nothing to do with-
we zone upon annexation, so we have to zone it something at the time of annexation, is request for single-family residential. I suppose at the time of a preliminary plat, you could do that, but that is our minimum, is the 8250 in R1. We don't have anything else below that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, any other change would just be modifying, if you wanted to increase the lot size or something, that's currently not what we have in our code, so that is the minimum.
Okay, thank you.
Comments? Donna, the packet was lengthy and
I
complete.
mean, the city has done, sorry, I should follow, the city's done annexation agreements before that have a 2.5 dwelling units per acre or something like that. They're often more difficult to make work, and they're usually for larger projects. It has done that before on larger tracts of land, certainly nothing that I'm aware of in the 5-acre range. The Hayden Canyon PUD is an example. That's annexed and zoned a certain density with a agreement on a limitation. But that's generally taken in a much larger space. So
Okay.
probably not something we recommend in less than a 5-acre parcel. But.
Okay, thank you.
There were no public comments other than those that were identified specifically on the presentation, and no additional public comments were requested for this hearing. The applicant has the opportunity per agenda to rebut any public comment, but since there weren't any, does the applicant require or want to clarify anything that's been presented?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then the public hearing is now closed. The council will have the opportunity to deliberate. Donna, the conditions that were given, that were approved by planning and zoning are the same conditions that you recommended prior to the planning and zoning, so they were simply identifying your conditions,
Correct.
staff conditions,
Staff's conditions.
staff conditions, so. Thanks.
Good point.
Council now has the opportunity to deliberate. Council can choose to proceed with deliberations or schedule deliberations to a later date to allow time to review the record. Should they choose to schedule them at a later date, remind council that they will be unable to have any communication regarding the case with either the general public or the applicant prior to deliberation. And then the council decision will be direction for staff and applicant or final decision on case. So council, it is in your hands now.
Could I say something?
Please.
I think as we look at the map and the way the boundaries are set up here, you'll find that over a period of time, what we have tried to do is square off our boundaries for planning purposes, because it takes years of planning in order to lay out sewers and roads and all these things for the future. We have some places in the city that are jogging here and there, but generally it's squared off, and it's for that reason. And now what we have, since we zoned around the airport light industrial for the purpose of providing jobs for the future and stuff for people that may want to live here, our children and grandchildren and people like that. But the problem we have in this area now, and it's not just Hayden, is a lack of housing for people that want to move in here and live here. Now, there's a lot of people that are against these multifamily units and stuff like that are popping up all over the place, and I'm not particularly in love with them either. We have a few because it's our obligation as representing the people here to provide lower income housing when possible, if lower income is even possible today at all. I mean, that's a big problem. But these particular homes in this area here is just filling in an area that was already set aside in the long-range plan for doing just that. It's close to schools, it's close to transportation, it provides all the amenities that are needed for a subdivision to be. So I think that that stands on its own.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just say that in looking over the conditions, I do feel that the annexation request meets those.
Thank you. Roger, any comments?
No, I'm good.
Do we have a motion to either approve, deny, or approve with additional conditions?
I'll make that motion to approve with the conditions that are proposed.
We have a motion to approve the annexation request with the staff recommendation conditions consistent with planning and zoning. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange,
Yes.
and Councilmember Panabaker.
Yes.
Thank you. For those, and I'd like to introduce, we have how many from Coeur d'Alene High School? Seven. What class are you representing? Really? Who's your teacher? Is he good?
No comment.
I've got you on camera. Mine was Mr. Lundblad, just prior to the turn of, well, I say the turn of the century, it was 30 years prior to the turn of the century.
Dean Lundblad.
Dean Lundblad
Yeah, I know.
was my government teacher. With that, if you have the opportunity, the draft presentation and the information that was provided here, both by the applicant as well as the staff, and the fact that it had to be run through again is a great example of land use, whether approved or denied, doesn't matter. There's a great amount of information. So that could be, it's not real exciting. Trust me, when you're reading 50, 60 pages of it, you lose focus sometimes. That's okay. That's counsel and my responsibility. But that was a great example, I think. If that's what you were looking for in process, if you're just here for a meeting, you picked one of the longest ones that we've had in the last little bit, but there's a lot to do. But that was just a really good land use review, if you would. So just thought I'd throw that in, and don't worry about Mr. Walters. I'm sure he's not watching. 5A, action item PZE-21-0203, Quails Nest Zone Map Amendment Ordinance. Just to make sure that I'm on the right page, public hearings are required for certain types of ordinances such as zoning ordinances, appropriations, or ordinances, etc. Normally, however, an ordinance does not require a public hearing before its adoption. Is it the recommendation to have a city-initiated public hearing for this?
We already had initiated public hearing by the applicant on the zone map amendment itself.
Okay.
I believe that was heard in November, right? Okay, November. And this is just an ordinance that follows to update our zone map. So it's just purely adopted like any other ordinance.
Thank you. I need a motion then to approve, to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading. So I need a motion to do so.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLange,
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker.
Yes.
And Council President Satterfield.
Yes.
Excellent. I just need to make sure that we're on, because we've got a lot in this little bit. 210203. An ordinance of the City of Hayden, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for change in zoning classification for the lands described in section 1 of this ordinance from commercial to mixed residential, providing for amendment of the official zoning map to reflect these changes, providing that all prior zones applicable to the lands described in section 1 are hereby superseded, providing severability, and providing an effective date. Do we have a motion that the ordinance be adopted on its having passed its first reading by title only, and that it be published by summary, incorporating the title as the core of the summary upon passage?
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Thank you. 5B, action item PZE-21-0203, Quails Nest Future Land Use Map Amendment Resolution.
You'll recall Quails Nest was a two-step public hearing. They requested comprehensive plan amendment first and a zone map amendment second. So the ordinance is to update which both were approved. The ordinance was to update our zone map. Our future land use map and comp plan are adopted by resolution, so to update them is by resolution. So that's what this resolution is before you, and it just provides an update to the 2040 future land use map included in the comp plan.
Resolution, though separate than ordinance, or do we follow it in the same pattern?
Just to adopt it, yep, just a motion to approve a resolution, no reading.
Good. We need a motion then to either approve or deny the PZE-21-0203 Quails Nest Future Land Use Map Amendment Resolution.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
And Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Thank you. New business 6A, action item approval of 2022 meeting calendar resolution. There will be no need to read that resolution, correct?
Correct, it's just a motion to approve.
We need a motion to approve the 2022 meeting calendar resolution as was
Motion to
presented.
approve.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
I was going to say, this is easy. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
And Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Thank you. 6B, action item acceptance of official ballot results for November 2nd, 2021 election. Do we have a motion to accept?
Mayor, I need to
Yes.
read those into the record.
Thank you. Abby, we'll turn the time over to you.
Mayor and Council, the official election results from the November 2nd, 2021 consolidated election has been received from Kootenai County. And by law, I believe I have to read these into the record by precinct, the results by precinct. So we will start with Council Seat 2. The candidates were Nicole Barnett, Ed DePriest, and Richard Dick Panabaker. For Precinct 14, Nicole Barnett had 208 votes, Ed DePriest had 133 votes, Richard Panabaker had 115 votes. For Precinct 15, Nicole Barnett had 73 votes, Ed DePriest had 167 votes, and Richard Panabaker had 115 votes. For Precinct 17, Nicole Barnett had 93 votes, Ed DePriest had 150, and Richard Panabaker had 139. For Precinct 18, Nicole Barnett had 276 votes, Ed DePriest 255, and Richard Panabaker 173. For Precinct 19, Nicole Barnett had 134, Ed DePriest 184, and Richard Panabaker 126. For Precinct 20, Nicole Barnett had 228, Ed DePriest 207, Richard Panabaker 205. For Precinct 21, Nicole Barnett 85, Ed DePriest 138, and Richard Panabaker 124. For Precinct 22, Nicole Barnett had 0, Ed DePriest had 0, and Richard Panabaker had 3. For Council Seat 4, the candidates were Jerry DeLange and Sandy White. For Precinct 14, Jerry DeLange had 126, Sandy White 330. Precinct 15, Jerry DeLang, 129, Sandy White, 231. Precinct 17, Jerry DeLang, 156, Sandy White, 227. For Precinct 18, 184, Sandy White, 524. For Precinct 19, 139 for Jerry DeLang and 302 for Sandy White. Precinct 20, 230 for Jerry DeLang, 410 Sandy White. Precinct 21, 148 for Jerry DeLang and 202 for Sandy White. And for Precinct 22, 2 for Jerry DeLang, 1 for Sandy White.
Do you want to read the totals, or
And-
does it matter?
Sure. And the total number of votes for Nicole Barnett was 1,097. Ed DePriest, 1,234. And Richard Panabaker, 1,000. For Jerry DeLang was 1,114. Sandy White, 2,227.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the official ballot results for the November 2nd,
I'd like to
2021
know
election?
something.
Yes.
How can I claim victory with those kind of numbers? How the hell am I gonna do that?
We could talk about that later in the meeting.
I'd make a
but it's
motion to
really-
accept
It's
it.
really gonna be a tough one. We have a motion to accept
Second,
the official ballot results.
second,
And we have a second for November 2nd, 2021. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? That's when you would
Discuss?
discuss.
Oh, okay.
Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Council President Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember DeLang, and
yes.
Councilmember Panabaker.
Yes,
Zach, do you want to talk about 6C, or do we want to just go by your memo? Where'd my friend Zach go? He was here.
He's over here.
Oh, you already are there. Good. 6C, action item PZE 21-0218, James and Ruby Palmer Zone Map Amendment. And you're going to discuss planning and zoning's recommendation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I can be brief.
Zach, is this your first time at the podium?
In front of council, yes.
Yeah, congratulations. Zach has been phenomenal in his work. We're grateful that we were able to steal him, and Mr. Callahan was not happy. So that's the best compliment I could give you. So we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
I'm happy to be here, and certainly you have a memo explaining the course of events up to this point. For the benefit of the public, I will briefly go over where we are in this request. So this is a request for zone map amendment of a parcel in the residential zone, and the request was to change the zone to mixed residential. A public hearing was held in November 1st, and it now comes before you. Just to give some background on what led up to this request, in May of 2021, the city sent out letters to property owners in anticipation of a citywide zone map amendment consistent with the future land use map that had been adopted a few months prior. That ultimately did not occur, and council had provided direction that individual property owners would come forward with requests for zone map amendments on sites. And so in September of this year, the applicant came forward with this zone map amendment request. It's a lot on a dead-end residential road, and it's a little less than a half acre, about a third of an acre, developed with a single-family residence. You can see in this aerial that Cuff Road is a developed residential neighborhood. The applicant is the individual that is hoping to purchase the property from James and Ruby Palmer and develop the property in accordance with mixed residential zone. And I'll get into a little bit more detail of that request a little later on. But the Planning Commission considered this request in light of the standards of approval set forth by code, and they ultimately recommended denial of the request. First and foremost, this first standard of approval deals with largely a procedural aspect of this, and they determined that no additional studies or plans would be necessary. One of the important aspects of this is whether or not it's consistent with community needs. And the applicant's narrative went into detail about how they believed it was consistent with community needs. The Planning Commission decided that it was not consistent, and that was one of the reasons they recommended denial of the request. Even though Getting to condition 3, the request is consistent with the currently adopted future land use map from the 2040 comprehensive plan. Certainly, this process is still necessary because each parcel will be considered based on the merits of the request, the situation of the surrounding area, and that's what the Planning Commission discussed and deliberated on. Just to give a little bit more detail for context about what the applicant is hoping to do, the mixed residential zone allows a little bit of a higher density of development. Originally, they wanted to come in and develop this with 4 residences, 2 duplexes, which would have required a subdivision. And subsequent to the Planning Commission's recommendation, they have since altered the request consistent with an aspect of the process, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but suffice it to say that they want to develop this with more than 1 residence. Currently, 2 residences is their goal. The comprehensive plan goals and policies are detailed in the memo packet that you received. Certainly, there are a number of policies that could be relevant to this request. I won't go into the individual policies in detail tonight. They were discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and it is important to note that the future land use map is not the only aspect of the comprehensive plan that need be considered. These goals and policies also need to be considered. That's what the Planning Commission did, and that's where they landed on their recommendation for denial. And then finally, just getting into some detail about what the request is, the single family residential zone does not allow 2 family dwellings. The applicant wanted originally to establish 2 two-family dwellings. And so the mixed residential zone would accommodate that. Also, the mixed residential zone would allow for a smaller lot size that would enable them to subdivide this parcel, whereas they could not do so in the R1 zone. So that was the final standard of approval.
Can you go back, Zach, for me,
Absolutely.
please?
Yes.
And if in fact council approved this contrary to the recommendation of planning and zoning, the mixed residential zone provides for a range of residential structures. So simply because a developer, just for the record, says, well, they're going to make changes or so on, if we change zone, doesn't the applicant then or the future have the opportunity to do whatever is approved within a mixed residential zone?
That is absolutely correct in the absence of a zoning development agreement. And I can discuss how that could potentially be an option if you were inclined to approve this request. But to give a visual of what you're getting at, these are development standards for both the single family residential and then the mixed residential zone. And as you suggested, there are multiple types of homes that one could develop in the mixed residential zone. Single family, duplex, which was the original proposal, townhomes and cottages. And each of those have various setback standards, lot coverage standards, et cetera. And so looking at this duplex, which is what the applicant detailed, the minimum lot size is 7,000 square feet, but you're absolutely right. Unless there were a zoning development agreement that accompanied the ordinance, then someone could potentially develop this in accordance with the mixed residential standards, and of course, meeting all the other site plan and subdivision standards of Hayden City Code. So the proposal of the applicant is just kind of expressing their intent, but they wouldn't be limited to that unless you decided to go for a zoning development agreement.
Thank you.
And so,
Donna, he's good. We probably should keep him.
I think so.
If that's okay on the plan. Brett? Okay, good.
thank you. So this is just a zoning map to give you some context. We've already looked at the future land use map. This neighborhood is single family residential. It's actually not far from where we are now. You can see in the bottom left of that image is City Hall, and that's the central business district. And then directly to the west of Cuff Road, north of us, is the residential multifamily zone with some apartments that are developed there. So I think that's what led to the mixed residential designation, is that it's transitional from that corridor, the multifamily, then you have the mixed residential, and then the single family on the future land use map. And so you can kind of compare that with this zoning to get an idea of why the request was made. The infrastructure requirements would of course be relevant at time of development should the request be approved. This is located within the Avondale Irrigation District. Utilities would of course be required in accordance with our site plan standards, and frontage improvements along Cuff Road, including like a swale and utility easement, would be necessary. But that would be, again, if this were approved and the applicant went to develop the site, We did run this by agencies and we did not receive any objection or concerns from any of the agencies. We did receive some future development standards from Northern Lakes Fire Protection District that would be relevant if the applicant goes and develops, but nothing for the zone change specifically. We received a substantial amount of opposition to the request. 19 comments were submitted in writing. Those are in the memo that you received. And then at the hearing, there were 7 who expressed opposition to the request, which was a large factor in the Planning Commission deciding to ultimately recommend denial. This is just another image.
Going back, Zach, I'm sorry, but I want to make sure for the record, did we provide any opportunity for this Coeur d'Alene School District to respond? Did we send it to the 3 individuals? And did we hear any response from any member of the Coeur d'Alene School District?
It's not in there.
Thank
There was
you.
no response from the Coeur d'Alene School District. We did send it to the school district as is typical for zone map amendment requests, and we did not hear back.
They know. Donna knows why. Thank you.
This is just another image. This is from Google Maps, just at an angle, but this is some context, and it's included in the presentation because the applicant included it in their narrative. They identified specific developments in the surrounding area that they believed supported their request for mixed residential. Just really briefly, there are some single family and duplex dwellings up here north of Orchard. To the east is a condominium plat, Village at Hayden, it's called. Those are distinct from fee simple lots where you have individual ownership like you have on Cuff Road. Instead, it's condominiums with common open space. To the west, as discussed, are apartments accessed from Government Way. And then finally, there are some condominiums up here that they pointed out. So just for some context from what the applicant had presented. And then as mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission believed that the standards of approval could not be met, and therefore they recommended denial of the request. The motion carried 4-0. These are the standards of approval that we've gone through. So just as kind of a recap, this is what the code says must be met in order for a zone map amendment request to be approved. And from a procedural standpoint, it's important to note that the code also allows an applicant, upon a recommendation of a Planning and Zoning Commission, it allows the applicant to submit a statement objecting to that, and for it to be included within the memo packet to the City Council as long as it's submitted in a timely manner. And so that is included in your packet. You likely read it, and that sets forth the applicant's response and then their intent to, instead of developing it with 4 units, develop it with 2, which, if you were inclined to approve, would require a zoning development agreement. And so that's an important aspect of this in deciding how to proceed. Of course, you can approve it. You can approve it with conditions, which would be effected through a zoning development agreement. If you were to do that, it would require an additional public hearing because the public has not had a chance to comment on that scenario at a hearing. So that would be procedurally what would happen, or you can deny the request consistent with the Planning and Zoning Commission's written recommendation. And with that, I stand for any questions that you have at this time.
I'll start with you. Any questions? Any questions for Zach? Thank you, Zach. Council, do we have a motion to approve with conditions, or deny the zone map amendment request from single family residential to mixed residential?
I would make a motion to deny it.
Second.
We have a motion to deny the request from single family residential R1 to mixed residential MR. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLange.
This is to
To deny.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Council President Satterfield.
Yes.
And Councilmember Panabaker.
Yes.
Thank you. Zach, you're on again. 6D, PZE 21-0213 Aspen Homes Zone Map Amendment.
Just pulling it up here. And a lot of what I discussed is going to be relevant here. For the public's benefit, I'll go over it again so they can be familiar with the request. Again, this was heard on November 1st at a public hearing, so the public did have an opportunity to comment. And here we are for a decision based on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. In this case, the zone map amendment request is from commercial to mixed use. Just some background on this one, there's an additional element. Of course, there's that citywide zone map amendment that was, that didn't occur as planned. And then in September, there was a boundary line adjustment that had been completed. And on the image that I'll pull up, you'll be able to see what the parcel boundaries were and what they are now as a result of that boundary line adjustment. Of course, no new properties or parcels were created as a result of that. It was simply an adjustment of the boundary line to create the lot that they're requesting to rezone, which is approximately 2.4 acres. It's undeveloped because of the BLA, which separated the residents on site from the property in question. And so this is an aerial, the blue lines under the bold yellow are the old parcel boundaries. And then the yellow is what we're considering now based on that recorded boundary line adjustment. The owner, Aspen Homes and Development, presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission their proposal for mixed-use development. They don't have a specific site plan in mind at this point. They went over some mixed-use developments in the area, discussed that they're looking at some options based on the zone's requirements, but there is no specific site plan that they've submitted. And then the analysis in this case, the Planning and Zoning Commission did believe that the standards of approval that we've already discussed at the last presentation were met, and so there was no additional need for studies or plans at this time. Importantly, if this is approved, the applicant does need to come back with a site plan when they develop it, and at that time it will be sent out to relevant agencies, and there will be a need to discuss with planning, engineering, et cetera, all the conditions that would entail, that development of the site would entail. So certainly that would be a next step if this were to be approved. The Planning and Zoning Commission did feel that the proposal was consistent with community needs without additional conditions. So there was no discussion of a zoning development agreement in this case, as far as the recommendation to council goes. This is the future land use map, and as you can see, the request is consistent with the existing future land use map designation of mixed use. That's in the purple. The red to the north of Hayden is commercial. As you know, Hayden Avenue is already a commercial corridor, and so the zoning, which I'll show in a minute, is largely commercial. And then to the south, you have established residential neighborhoods of a variety of zones. And so that's the context and what led to this request.
Can you go
again,
back, please, Zach? Sorry to do this to you, but this one, I want to make sure that the public gets correct information.
Absolutely.
So this is the southwest corner of the intersection of Hayden Avenue and Ramsey Road.
That's correct, yes.
We'll begin that for clarification. Secondly, there were a plethora of election signs on that property, both on Hayden Avenue as well as on Ramsey Road. I have had direct discussions with individuals asking why people that were, I got to be careful. I need to say this correctly, but I want to make sure that it's out there. People were concerned that there was some agreement made by the owners of the property to allow election signs on that property. How am I doing?
I mean, it's, if they own it, they can allow signs anyway.
They did not.
Oh, well then,
And
but they
that's
could have
the,
had
that's
signs
the
removed.
issue. Others in the community said, well, was there some sort of an agreement made by the landowner and future members of city council with respect to this request?
Oh, because the request is pending at the time?
Because, so that's why this is, I'm glad it's coming now, not later, just for clarification. I had the opportunity to talk with both candidates, and both candidates assured me that there was no agreement. I haven't talked to the applicant. And this is simply for the record because it was important, the applicant did not approve for those signs to be on the property. I say that so that there was no collusion, no discussion, no agreements, nothing between, that I know of, between future members of council and this landowner. There were no agreements. There simply was, there were signs on the property. So Zach, I just needed that for clarification. There were, nothing was done, signs were put up, the landowner did not know about the signs, neither did the landowner approve of those signs, but I just want to make sure that there was no wink understanding or any collusion or any agreements moving forward with respect to this property and this proposal, and for the record, to make sure that any future requests or proposals, that there's not been any, I mean, and we'll ask the council members when this comes forward later, but from my understanding as mayor and from doing research, that there was no collusion, no agreements, nothing between the landowner and the individuals that put signs on that landowner's property. How did I do?
But as a follow-up to that, that's kind of irrelevant though, because they're not voting on it, right? So
Which is why
your
I'm
issue
glad,
isn't-
I'm glad that they're not, and they're not voting.
just to clarify that though, it's not
Thank you.
Councilmember DeLange and Councilmember Panabaker that are at issue, that, because they're the voting
That
members
is,
on this.
that's correct. I just wanted to make sure that there was, because
Right.
the comments back and forth, and if there's any future requests or any future decisions to be made on the property, I just wanted that to be public information. So that's as good as I got at 6:30. My head's already spinning. So Zach, I hope that was as clear as mud.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and just to full circle, as long as there are no issues with the current sitting, members that are going to be voting on this matter, I don't think there's an issue on the
And
property. There's no
probably,
conflict, there's no-
because I brought something up, have there been any, I don't recall if there were signs, but I just want to make sure that we are open. Were there any agreements, were there signs that did you put signs on the property, and did you make any agreements with the individual
No,
property
as
owners?
a matter of fact, I asked people before I put my signs up, because I know you're supposed to do that, and particularly in this election, it was.
Well, this was a tough one. This one got my attention from a lot of people. Councilmember DeLange, did you have any agreements or any discussions with the property owner with respect to this decision or any other future decisions?
No, I did not, and I specifically did not place any of my signs on anyone's property without their permission.
Okay, I'm not, no one did anything wrong in terms of signs were placed without the approval of the landowner. But I just want to make sure that there was no agreements made by any of the individuals that are on council now, and I'll probably ask council later for that same thing. So, thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
It's just a turn I needed to make sure that we addressed.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And as far as staff goes, I am not aware of, and I don't believe staff is aware of any formal agreements or any other agreements related to that issue. So
Thank you.
I won't go into detail again on these because they were considered in detail, but certainly they are in your packet. And again, in addition to the future land use map, these go into that recommendation that the Planning and Zoning Commission made. And they did feel that with the change from commercial to mixed use, what that would allow would be consistent with the Hayden Avenue corridor. And just as a refresher, because mixed use is a relatively new zone in the code, stemming from the Title 11 code amendments earlier this year, the commercial zone allows for commercial, and it does not allow for residential uses, with the exception of things like a caretaker's residence. The mixed use zone allows for commercial land use types, but also multifamily residential, or both. And so there could be a mixture. There doesn't have to be a mixture. One or the other of commercial or multifamily residential would still be consistent with the mixed use zone. And I just make that clarification because the name mixed use makes it sound like it's always going to be mixed use. But our development standards lay out setbacks depending on the type of use. And that's what the applicant would have to adhere to. Again, this is the zoning map. Thinking back to that comprehensive plan map, the south side of Hayden is designated as mixed use on the comprehensive plan, but it's commercial on the current zoning map. This applicant is requesting a change to that mixed use zoning. To the south, that brown that you see is residential multifamily. That's a developed neighborhood. There are no undeveloped lots on Marigold. And then there are a variety of commercial uses along Hayden, as well as some residences that are non-conforming, meaning that they're in the commercial zone. They couldn't be established today, but they're existing because they've been there for some time. The infrastructure would be discussed at time of site development with the site plan that the applicant brings forward. Importantly, the Hayden Avenue and Ramsey Road intersection is currently under design development that for improvements to that intersection. There's no final plan for that, but that's going to have to be incorporated into the site plan. We did notice 20 agencies, and we did not have any concerns from any of them, including the school district, which we did not hear from. We did receive a request for an navigation easement from Coeur d'Alene Airport, and then Northern Lakes Fire District and Department of Environmental Quality just set forth general standards that would have to be met. As far as the public goes, we did receive 6 public comments, 4 of them in writing, which are included in your memo, and then 2 at the hearing in opposition to the request. Concerns that were raised had to do with generally the growth in the area, as well as concerns about consistency with the surrounding uses. But those are in your packet, and certainly they were incorporated into the deliberations that the Planning and Zoning Commission had in making their recommendation to you. This is just an aerial image from Google of the area with the parcel outlined in white. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval from 4 to 0 in favor of this request without any recommended conditions. And these are the standards of approval that must be met in order for a zone change to be approved. They believed that these were met. If you believe that as well, then you can approve the request. You can approve it with conditions through a zoning development agreement, or you can deny the request. And I stand for any questions that you have at this time.
Councilmember DeLange, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Council President Satterfield?
No questions. Is this time for comment or wait?
Well, we don't have a motion, so you can make whatever comments, I guess,
Okay.
questions or comments is appropriate.
I guess what I'm looking at, they want to go from commercial to mixed use. At the other end of Ramsey at Prairie, you have this nice little neighborhood store. It's a nail place, it's a store, yogurt shop and stuff. And what I look at is in neighborhoods like that, if you have that type of thing, which is commercial, you cut down on traffic because they're not running all the way to Super One or Coeur d'Alene or something like that. They're staying in the neighborhood. So I guess I personally like the idea of it staying commercial.
Okay. Any comments? Do we have a motion to?
We also,
go
I
ahead.
just, sorry, we talked about this at Planning and Zoning, and I just wanted to bring it up. So our code formerly allowed for a special use permit for residential multifamily uses in the commercial zone. We changed that when we did code amendments this spring. So we take away any residential ability in just the commercial zone, but really that mixed use kind of replaces that aspect, right? So kind of 3 options in mixed use. Could be commercial, can be multifamily housing, can be a mix of both of those uses. So it can be a combination. So it's really not far off, I just say, in the aspect of, we used to allow that by special use permit. In fact, most of our multifamily today exists by special use permit in the commercial zone. So I just wanted to bring that up for the existing property, what we used to have in our zone, and just the changes that we've made since.
Okay, so that was good, but lawyer speak.
It's not that far off
Previously,
from what we allowed.
It wasn't, it was consistent with what previously entailed a commercial zone.
Right, so in commercial, right, yeah, you could have, previous to April, you could have requested a special use permit if you were zoned commercial to do multifamily units. So the mixed use zone is intended to outright, without a conditional use permit, apply to a variety of uses. So,
And hence the request.
yep,
Okay.
Design standards.
with design standards.
That were approved by council
And one of the design standards is that they will have to have a commercial component because of the location.
of the location to Ramsey and
So
Hayden.
that's important.
So it
Thank you
has
for
to have the
that.
mixture.
It has to have both.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
That'll
and
work.
that is next step.
Yeah, so this is just the zone change. To the extent they had a design and wanted to come before you on whatever that project would be, that would be a next step.
Within that, does council have the power to be able to, with staff's recommendations and planning and zoning, provide conditions, standards, or directions to the developer with respect to that property?
And for example, if they came forward with a preliminary plat, we frequently have conditions of approval on those items that are just applicable to what our code says for those requests. This is just I want to request the zone I'm at today to conform to that. And as Donna just mentioned, our design standards for mixed use have been revised. And part of that was going from the minimum of, we now have the 12 dwelling units an acre is applicable now, that's in code.
Correct.
And they can get up to 15 if they meet even more design
And that's why
guidelines.
we moved back.
Yep.
No, in reading this, it was almost like it was simply a replacement due to the.
It's very similar, yes.
Very similar, I
Yes.
guess is the
And
best
just
way to put
to
it.
Council President Satterfield's comment, there has to be a commercial component just because of the location to the street. We require that in our code. They can't just have multifamily.
It has to have
Anyway.
commercial, but it can also have,
Can also have it, but it can't. So today, mixed use, unless you're in a location we define close to a certain level of road, arterial.
300 feet within a signalized intersection.
Okay, 300 feet within a signalized intersection,
as it stands now, it's zoned commercial.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
But with the restrictions then changed with respect to commercial, like you said, it is a
Right.
like, would be a like, you used another word.
I mean, but previously, under our code, they could have gotten, in commercial, they could have sought a special use permit to do residential multifamily. Just to your comment of liking that they have commercial on it, they still have to have that if they go mixed use because it's required under our design standards. I just wanted to
Thank you for
clarify
that clarification. Does that help? Any other questions? Councilmember Satterfield?
Yeah.
With respect to that, you're okay? Councilmember Delane? Any questions? Okay.
And
Thank you, Zach.
One clarifying point as far as, so with that clarification, thank you, Caitlin, they could have only commercial or they could have a mixture of commercial and mixed use. And just to make sure, when you were talking about variable property at the corner of Ramsey and Prairie, I believe you were talking about the southwest corner of that intersection. Is that correct? South of Prairie. Where you have that existing.
Oh,
commercial-
Prairie.
Oh, the
Yes.
other.
Yeah,
end.
Yeah,
that
because
you
this is what,
Yeah.
this is Hayden,
Yeah,
okay.
that would be, that's in the city of Coeur
Coeur
d'Alene.
d'Alene.
Right.
Just for a reference, so that, that doesn't have comparable zoning, but it certainly, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Planning and zoning recommended approval of the requested zone map amendment from commercial to mixed use without any conditions, is that right, Zach?
That is correct.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve with conditions, or deny the zone map amendment request from commercial to mixed use?
How often is it this silent?
I think it's pretty enjoyable. The peace that it provides. It was really Fonda that brought that peace to us, it appears.
Well, just to get things rolling somewhere, I would make the motion that the request to mixed use be denied.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Panbaker,
No,
Councilmember DeLang,
Yes.
Council President Satterfield.
Yes.
6E, action item, resolution to adopt 2021 citywide zone map.
So, over the course of the last 2 years, we have provided for various zone changes to occur. And so we're trying to update our printed version of the zone map annually so it reflects the zone changes that have occurred and have been approved by ordinance previously by the city council. And so the zone map amendment is, the zone map update is adopted by resolution. There are a couple of of other noticeable changes. The zone map that's on the wall kind of is a remnant of like 25 years of zone maps. And it tries to have a street legend next to it. And there's no way you can get all the streets to fit on a map unless you make that thing huge and still be able to read it. So that's gone away. It's similar in structure to the comprehensive plan map. So it has an aerial image in the back now. It did away with the purple that's on that one that seemed to have been confusing to folks with the comprehensive plan. So it just shows a lined boundary around it. And it updates the legend to be in accordance with the adopted zones that are in our zone text amendments. Both mixed use, mixed residential, and residential multifamily are still all there. The only other change that I would note is that for folks that have similar color concerns, yellows and oranges tend to really blend together. And we've heard that complaint by several folks. So we updated mixed residential to be blue instead of orange.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve?
It's important to note that there are no new changes. All this map
Okay, thank
does
you.
is reflect what's existing.
Thank you.
Okay.
So there's no changes to it, it's just color?
Just color.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2021 citywide zone map?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember DeLange?
Yes.
Councilmember Panabaker?
Yes.
Council President Satterfield?
Yes.
Thank you. Prior to the reports, we've done a lot. This will be the final total full meeting for Councilmember Panabaker and Councilmember DeLange. Both Councilmember Panabaker and Councilmember DeLange were recognized at the employee dinner at Rob Bloom's facility. And we are grateful for Rob and Amy for allowing us to be able to be there. We've not had a change in the 6 years I've been here. Since I came on, there have been no change to the council. We're grateful for the opportunity to be able to continue to grow and learn as a city and as a council. But I'd like to take this opportunity to give both Councilmember Panabaker and Councilmember DeLange the opportunity to say a few words after I thank them both for the tremendous job that they have done and that they do for the city of Hayden. It has been an honor to serve with you, and I am grateful for what you have taught me and the examples that you have set. I'm going to let ladies go second in this regard.
You want the biggest liar first?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Councilmember Panabaker, if you'd like to make any comments.
I know a lot of you have heard me talk about this before, but I firmly believe it, and that's why I'm saying it now. I was asked during the course of this election, what have I personally done as far as furthering the good for the will of the people and stuff like that around here? There is no one person that runs this. There is no one person that knows all the answers. This is a team effort. Everything that we do, and I've said it publicly and I believe it 100%. I'm not smart enough to be the king here, and neither is anybody else. We have people here that bring something to the table, every one of them, and we use all that information if we do it right. And we listen to what they have to say, and we hire good people to be around us, because we all know this. You're only as good as the people around you. Individually, we're not smart enough to do it all ourselves. I never claimed to be. So when I didn't give them an answer, well, yeah, I was responsible for this, or I was responsible. No, that ain't how it works. It works because you surround yourself with people just like these right here, and you listen to what they have to say, and you learn from the audience when they say something. Every day is a learning experience. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and every day, even today, is a learning experience for me. And I want to thank you all for putting up with me for 30 years, for crying out loud. It's been a good deal. We've had a great team. We've had new people, and people go away. And I've been fortunate enough to live and learn in this great area, which we worked very hard to make it that way. And I thank you for what you've put up with me and the experience of being here. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Councilmember Delane.
I just want to say that it truly has been an honor to serve the citizens of Hayden these past 20 years. And I want to, as Councilmember Pannenbaker mentioned, it's a team effort. And I want to commend the mayor and the other council members, all of the staff. There's no way that we could do the great job that all of us do for the city of Hayden without your help. And I'm really going to miss working for the city. 20 years is a long time, but I want to congratulate the 2 new people who will be starting next month, and I wish you the best. I know that you'll really enjoy serving the city and its citizens. And again, to all the citizens of Hayden, thank you.
Thank you very much. We will we'll have the opportunity to present. Is that correct? The change will come next meeting, January 11th?
Yes.
And we'll have the opportunity to recognize each of you again, but thank you more than you know.
I have to ask a question. Are you going to recognize us with a big boot, or how are you going to do that?
You know, a pat on the back is only 6 inches above a kick in the pants, so we'll go from there. I'm not sure. I'll do whatever I am told to do.
Oh, sure you will.
Because I'm so obedient.
Yeah.
The Association of Idaho Cities has put together information for newly elected individuals. I thought it was great for each member of council. You don't have to read it, Dick or Jerry. Jerry, you have a copy, but I thought Roger would like one as well, and I would like one. It just makes this complicated process somewhat easier as we move forward. I also would like to comment with respect to newly elected officials, and to, warn's not the right word, but any comments that you make publicly or online can put us in a position, a difficult legal position. It could take away the opportunity to be able to express the vote, which is the reason that we are elected to this office. So did I do okay, Caitlin, in that regard?
true.
Just be careful moving forward, that know that people in Hayden expect us to do the job that we need to do. And I'm excited to be able to serve with both of you. I give the warning out often, just be careful in terms of any public comment, any social postings, anything that could cause the city of Hayden to be in a questionable legal position, and we'll go over some of those specifics later as well. So that's about all. Brett, do you have any other? There's no parades left. There's nothing left.
Not this year. They continue to come, but I appreciate the comments and thanking our 2 current council members. I wanted to, maybe on behalf of the employees, thank you again as well for your team approach and your support. And I appreciate really the new ones coming in and those that are going, your graciousness as we see democracy in action and a change is being made. And so with that, again, thank you for all that you've done. I don't know if it was the mayor who said this, But Dick Panabaker kind of holds the record. Not only were you a county commissioner, a mayor here, and also a council member. And I can't think of anybody else. It was Roger that mentioned that. Anybody else that's done that. So
It may have something to do with stupidity.
Frank
Frank Henderson is another one that I recall, but I don't think that he was mayor of Post Falls. He then was a state legislator,
That's true.
but I don't know
Jim
of any.
Hammond?
Yeah, Jim's been in every position
Oh, yeah.
ever, so I guess that's true too. Mayor, I ever referred to.
So the one thing in meeting and working with you folks and the new folks that are coming on, there is a good heart to serve the public. There may be disagreements in different things, but there's a good heart in wanting to serve and make the city of Hayden better. And the employees appreciate that good heart and the team effort, and we look forward to moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to let Roger be, well,
Can I-
following your stuff,
Yeah.
I'm going to let Councilmember Council President
What's his name?
Satterfield make the final comments. So I wanted to make sure that I put that in there before we,
Jerry has an addendum.
oh, yes.
And after his comments, I'd like to make my last AIC update.
Why don't you do it before? I'd like
Okay.
Roger to close with the spirit that it's intended. So
Okay.
Brett, then Jerry, then Roger.
You mentioned Hayden Lights. I just want to make a comment that it was actually, for me, seeing it, it was extraordinary this time. I think that was the most of the citizens with kids and things that had attended any of our parades. There were several thousand people that lined Government Way here, and it was just really fun that evening. And I know Susie's not in here right now. Public Works and our Parks and Recreation folks deserve big credit in those days and the days leading up to it, getting ready for that. We did receive just a little thank you from the Chamber of Commerce for the partnership. They started the European little market there before, and that added to the event, and they would like to do it again next year, so we'll be working on that. They want to add and do even more. It was a great success there. So also, you mentioned we had the employee dinner. We appreciate the support that was there. I wanted to publicly thank Sean and Abby and Kylie for all the work that they put in to getting that ready, and Stancraft for allowing us to use their beautiful facilities out there. I was going to mention AIC, but I'm going to leave the upcoming thing for you. Also, if you would look at your calendars, this is the new folks coming on and then the current. We met today on the LID, and we wanted to see if we could meet and have a tentative date of January 12th for a workshop on the LID. So you don't have to commit tonight, but if you put that maybe on your calendars and then let us know if that would work.
Is that at 3, Brett?
3 to 5 on the 12th.
That'll be Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be after the new council members have been sworn in. Also, just on your calendar, we're working on a date last week in January for an open house here for the Honeysuckle Beach information and with what's going on there, and we'll give you more. That would be the last week in January. Also,
So Dick doesn't have to come to that meeting, is that?
he doesn't.
You don't have to come?
Yeah, I'm
You
heartbroken.
can come heckle.
He could come, it's a public meeting. Okay.
And I think the last thing here is you mentioned some things about ex parte communications, and there was a very nice memo, clear memo that was put together by Caitlin, and I would encourage you all to take a look at that and read it.
Not only read it, I would like each council member to acknowledge that he or she has read it and understands it. We want to do the right thing, and I'm grateful for the input that both attorneys provided with that regard, and I look to them to make sure that we do all that we can do to protect the citizens.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember DeLange.
Before I give my last Association of Idaho Cities update, I just want to mention that I was sorry to miss the Christmas parade. I was in Boise attending meetings for the association and the legislative summit. And I provided memos to the mayor, council members, Brett, and legal counsel. But I do want these back. I noticed a couple of edits I need to make, so please give these back to me. I'll make the edits and then send them out to you by email. But just briefly, House Bill 389 and fund balance restrictions. It's unlikely that House Bill 389 will be removed and replaced with new legislation. The language in the bill will probably be revised. Let's see. Some legislators understand that limiting the new value on the tax roll to 90% of the value for new construction and annexed property and 80% of the value of all properties in expiring urban renewal districts is harmful to cities.
For the record, it makes no sense at all. And to let you know that the Coeur d'Alene Resort, they were open with me in a public meeting to say the Coeur d'Alene Resort's taxes were reduced by more than 20%, while the citizens and residential continue to carry the burden of taxes. It makes no sense at all, economically, socially, and you may use commercial tax bills as examples. So we take an entity that's thriving, reduce the taxes by 20%, and to replace those taxes, which equate to almost more than $100,000, that means that more individual residential homes have to carry the burden, and that's unacceptable. So that's what we're fighting. So I thought I'd give you that specific that you can use in your meetings. Okay.
Thank you for that, Mayor.
You bet.
Anyway, this prevents growth from paying for itself and forces existing taxpayers to subsidize new growth. It also forces an absolute cap of 8% on budgets and property tax increases. For small cities such as Hayden, this has devastating effects on meeting the demands for services. This is poor policy by the state to prevent smaller taxing districts from serving their citizens, especially as Idaho is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. By placing fund balance restrictions on rural or smaller cities, this can limit their ability for saving for capital improvement projects, equipment, software, insurance, etc., as cities cannot borrow money. If they have to bond for a project, they are paying interest, which costs the taxpayers more over the long term. And if you do not have a good fund balance, you cannot get a bond. This issue will also greatly impact those cities with extremely low mill levy rates, such as Hayden, and whose populations are dramatically increasing. There needs to be revised language in House Bill 389 to compensate for these inequities, to make it fair across the state for all size cities and their taxing authorities, as one size does not fit all. Cities also need to do a better job of explaining to the legislators why we need a fund balance. This issue will most likely be highly contentious from the start of the 2022 session. And so if I could get these back from everybody, I'll correct them and then resend them. Oh, and then also on January 20th, the Association of Idaho Cities will have its City Officials Day.
You had a comment, Dick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'd just like to say something. I've been doing this a long time. And this kind of stuff that she's talking about is nothing new from the state of Idaho. We get no support whatsoever from the legislature the people that we elect up here. Now, I've been on this city council for 12 years and I was county commissioner for 10 and mayor for 7 before that. In the 12 years that I've been on this council right here, I have never seen a legislator in this building asking any questions, trying to do anything at all, or trying to help us. When I was on the county commission, we went down there, we had some good plans that we put out to public vote, and went down there and they slapped our faces and sent us home. Forever, they have thought that we're not smart enough to run our own business up here, and they don't give us anything. And yes, I did talk to the builders, the contractors association. And I said that to them. I told them that. I said, you know, you guys, you think that we can just come up with all this and pass this and do this. We get no cooperation whatsoever from those people. And they mentioned to me, well, we just had some in here. Well, yeah, they pay them. They give them money and all that. And they see them. We don't. We get nothing. I made up a joke the last time I was in Boise trying to get something done to help the city of Hayden or anything like that. And I was asked to run for the legislature by some good people down there. I will not go down there. And I said at the time, there's something in the ozone layer. When people get on an airplane and fly to Boise, it causes brain damage. And when they get off the plane down there, it's like the bar scene in Star Wars. That's what it looks like, because they do nothing. All they think about is getting reelected and patting their own back, and to hell with them. That's how I feel about it. So that's enough, okay? And what are you going to do, fire me for that? I don't think so.
Dick, remember we have students in the audience.
I know. I said nothing that they haven't heard. And it's the truth.
I was surprised. I thought you would make a more formidable stand, but
Well, I can.
the vanilla approach you just gave is great.
Yeah. I think when you guys look
One
at
more.
voting in the future.
No more ping pong. We've done really well tonight. Yes.
Because some of these people, all they want to do is
You don't
get
need-
elected and get their name on some stupid thing and
You're
that's
done.
quit.
Amen.
I have,
You brought it up. It's your fault, so.
I have one last thing to mention. It's in regards to what you said about commercial and residential and the percentages. There is something that's being worked on. There's a proposal that would adjust the percentages. So like if residential went up so much, then commercial would go up that much either, so it would kind of even things out. I don't have that much information about it yet, but I did want to mention that that's in the works.
And Brett, that's referred to as? What were you doing? It's okay.
The shift? You talking
Yeah,
about-
but there was another word, but that's okay. It's
We
late.
got just the tax shift from commercial
Tax.
to residential.
Council President Satterfield, you have the last word.
I'm almost speechless.
Boy, that's a switch.
Yeah, isn't it? I'm even surprising myself. I just want to thank all of staff for a great year. Everything that you do, everything, the Christmas parade, Hayden Days, it's P&Z. I mean, the things that you guys do, I don't think you're ever appreciated. And what I'm leading into is Dick and Jerry both mentioned teamwork. If it wasn't for you folks, this team that sits up here wouldn't exist and we wouldn't do very well. So congrats to you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In regards to Jerry and Dick, I'm honored and I'm privileged to have served with them. I've been on council roughly, I think, 14 years, something like that. I worked for 38 different county commissioners, so I'm not new to the political world, but I am hard pressed to mention or find two people that their heart was always in the right place on any decision, and that was with the city of Hayden. I'm not saying we always made the right decision or popular decisions. All I'm saying is these two folks, their dedication to this city and them trying to do the right thing, the countless amount of hours that they put in. I just want to say thank you to both of you, and you'll be missed. And to Ed and Sandra, welcome to the jungle.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, we do.
Meeting's adjourned. 2:14 for all that, that's not bad.
Good job.
Oh, no, that wasn't me, it was.